Hello, this is Will Faerber from Art to Ride, and today we're looking at the first submission by Jo of her horse Chaplin. Jo lives in Germany, and this is a horse that she got as a 4-year-old. Sounds like he didn't have a whole lot of work in those 2 years as she was injured, so he had some time off and was with a jumper trainer. So she's getting him back started correctly and trying to undo some of the damage. Well, it's a little difficult to see from this distance, which is always hard when people don't have a cameraman to help them, but we'll do the best we can here. I certainly like a lot of what I'm seeing in the walk. He doesn't stay there very consistently, but the stretch you're getting is quite good. Just needs to be a little bit lower and to stretch out longer from the neck is the biggest thing we're looking for. We want this horse to reach out from the base of the shoulders quite a bit more than it's doing. And once you get that, there'll be a lot less up and down, so to speak. But that's pretty good. But you can see behind the saddle there's quite a big dip, and the horse looks kind of downhill. Once again, remembering always that it takes about 2 years for a horse, any horse, to go through the process that it should go through of developing its top line. That is, as we stretch them, their withers actually pull up through the shoulders, and that's what gives a horse a much more uphill kind of appearance, whereas this horse right now looks like there's a bit of a hole behind, almost looks higher behind than in front. So know that that will change over time. Takes about 2 years, depending on the horse's conformation and how much damage was done to the horse beforehand. I mean, starting with one that hasn't been hollow in the back is a lot quicker than starting one that has been. So, but generally speaking, it takes 1 to 2 years for that process to take place. We used to like to think of it about 1 year to establish the top line, about 2 years to confirm it to the point that the horse can begin work on collection. So just know that that's going to change over time if you stick with the program and keep stretching the horse and getting it more and more over its back. So once again, I would just like to see a little deeper stretch. Just I noticed with your position there a little bit, just try to keep your chest up and flatten your shoulder blades into your back a little bit. That looks like good walk there. So he has moments, and you can certainly see how as soon as the head comes back up, the hind legs kind of look a little more like, as I like to say, like they're being pulled up out of mud, so to speak. The lower the head goes, the more we see the back end swing. So that's what we're looking for, is that optimal point, that the horse goes as low as it can, and we find that optimal swing through the back. That's the position that we want to get and work the horse out at, and then we just generally slowly bring the horse's head and neck up as we can. Every horse is going to be different about this depending on their conformation, how much damage has been done to their back, whether they're behind the vertical or not, that is, whether they've been flexed in the wrong place in the neck. You know, some of these things add to taking a little more time, but the beauty of the classical system is it undoes all of that damage. So, you know, if you just get everything going right, most of the problems will disappear. Back looks a little straighter in that one. Sometimes it just looks like you need to flatten your shoulder blades back into your back a little bit and stretch up a little more. But I certainly like the looks of this horse. It's a deep corner there. There he is. And what I feel like is he gets to a pretty good place at times and then pops back up. So just keep working on it. There you go. That's better there. Once again, still, I just want to see this horse stretch out from the shoulder blades a little bit more, from the base of the shoulder, that is, so the neck isn't turtling back. This horse kind of goes over a little bit with the front half of the neck, but the back half doesn't stretch out as much as we'd like it to do. So keep working on that till we see a longer stretch. And know that, you know, now lunging is always good for horses at this stage to help them develop, but with the problems, you said the horse has some stifle problems and loose stifles and those sort of things, it might be better to do the work in the walk. And you can do a lot of work in the walk. As long as you can get the horse to stretch deep into the contact, you can develop a lot of conditioning in the walk by just doing the walk. And you can certainly add in leg yield, shoulder ins, half passes, and all those kinds of things as well. Always remembering, one of the big confusions that people have about lateral movement is as soon as they start to do it, they start to shorten the horse up, you know, and they get this false impression of balance because the horse is shortened all up. So we want to be able to do our lateral work in the same big stride. That's how we know we're doing it correctly, when we can keep the same big swinging stride and we don't lose the rhythm. So the rhythm is what tells us as trainers, you know, whether we're having a good quality, or whether the work we're doing, rather, is having a good gymnastic quality for the horse. In other words, it's building its muscles. So, and you will certainly learn to see that happen over time. And you'll see this horse, if you keep doing this work, you'll see that hole behind the saddle there where there's a dip that leads up to the croup. You'll see that all fill in. Right there, you can sort of see how that dips away. Now, if you continue riding a horse and you never get it back up, this is how horses end up with kissing spine and that sort of thing, because the backs are collapsed. So once again, it would be it'd be something to discuss with your veterinarian, because I don't know exactly what the problems are. Though that's a good walk there. That's starting to be good. And of course, our rule of thumb is if you can stretch the horse in the walk, then it's okay to ride them. If you can't get the stretch in the walk, then you should lunge them before you get on, because you want to get that happening. If you ride too much with your weight on the back of the horse collapse, it just exacerbates all the problems that you have. So you might want to think about lunging the horse as long as your veterinarians have cleared you to do that, and of course to do that correctly. And of course, look at our videos to figure that out if you haven't. But if your veterinarian has told you that you need to just ride this horse and not do any lunging work, this is certainly fine. You can get a lot done in the walk. Fortunately, this horse seems to be responding quite well to you in the walk, and mostly it looks quite good. Just needs to stretch a little bit deeper, and we'll start to swing a little more. And as you get that happening, you'll see more flexion in a horse's hocks as it lifts its legs. In other words, it won't have that look like it's just kind of stuck there. So it still needs to swing much more under the body. I feel like watching it go there, we can get a much deeper swing. And once you get the horse to stay there consistently, what you're doing is just fine. I mean, you're getting there. So that's the important thing. And yes, could you get there a little quicker and more consistently? Probably so, as your technique develops. But every time you get him to stretch, it'll be easier to get him to stretch the next time. Because remember, in the classical work, we're always asking the horse to work in the most comfortable way for it. So we're not asking it to do a lot of things that resist. That's why you see how pleasantly all our horses go along, because we're not trying to cram them into a false frame that makes everything impossible for them. I mean, the way that many people ride dressage these days, it has become so illogical, and remembering also that, relaxation is the hallmark of good dressage, and should be the foundation that we build everything else on, so if your horses are becoming more and more nervous, when you're riding dressage, there's something wrong with the way you're going about it, because they should be becoming more and more relaxed, because dressage is all about working the horse in the frames that allow it to do the work comfortably, so that the horse becomes a willing participant. It's never fun, to be on a horse that you constantly have to nag at, to do anything, or even worse, that you have to beat up the way we see so many people doing. And once again, if they would only take a little time to, as you are doing here, learn how to stretch, they would find that they could ride without all the tension and the danger, because when horses are tensed, they're not safe. They have they're much more prone to all kinds of things going wrong, so to speak. Just like people are. People get nervous, they make mistakes. Well, horses get nervous, they make mistakes too. So bear that in mind. So at least this horse looks nice and relaxed. I'd like the stretch to be a little more consistent, which it will do if you continue doing the work that you're doing. But we want to keep that relaxation that the horse has, and it does seem quite a nice relaxed horse with a nice temperament, so that's really good. And doing a little leg yield there. That's good, that's good. Not a bad loss of rhythm. You can see how the horse is still a little stiff behind, and we'd like her to track a little deeper, but that's the way to get it. So good, that's the way to start. Leg yields from the center line to the outside. This is exactly what you should be doing. And look, after that leg yield, we did get a little better walk, so she stretched a little more consistently, and that's what it should do. In the lateral movement, the horse should step deeper under the body, and then when it pushes off that leg, it will push the back up. So that's really what the lateral work, and why the shoulder in, the great old masters consider the shoulder in kind of the foundation of dressage training, because it's that foundational exercise of putting the horse from the inside leg into the outside rein, which is where all control begins. That is control over the frame. So once again, this walk is becoming a little more active. I like this. That's good. It's getting more swinging and active as you're going. And I like how you're spending plenty of time doing it. That's the beauty of the walk, is you can almost not do too much of it as long as you keep the horse over its back. I mean, you can certainly get horses to the point where they can walk for hours and keep their backs up. For instance, walking outside. But remember, the back always guides us. So in the work of every horse, we want to feel that we bring the horse to its its ultimate sort of best its gait can be for the given day, work it a little bit, and then get off before it starts to tire. I many times walked horses home out in the hunt field and just got off and walked them, because I could feel like the back was gone and the 5-mile walk home was going to destroy them. So get off and walk. So being conscious of what the back is doing is the most important thing that a rider ever learns that wants to really learn how to train horses and develop them correctly so that they'll last for years. Everything is based on that. So once again, this walk is all right. I'd like to see him deeper, a little deeper. Got a little inactive there as you made that turn. Not bad. And that's a good leg yield. I like how he's saying stretched into it, popped up there a little bit, but you're softening him back into it again. Always remember that the shoulder must always lead the leg yield. So be careful that he didn't that time, but he looked like he was starting to. That is to start to lead with the hindquarters. So if we keep the shoulders in advance all the time, that's what keeps the horse from hitting its legs together. Same thing in the half pass. We want to slightly advance the shoulder ahead of the hindquarters so the horse can cross its legs under and through. Getting a little pokey here now in the walk. Or maybe you're coming to a stop. Looks like you're adjusting something. Can't really see, so just wait till you move on a little more. There we go. And once again, that walk is looking better. Once again, still want to see her stretch down, and stretch out deeper from the shoulders, but you're getting it for moments. So that tells me if you can get it for a second, you can ultimately get it for 10 seconds, and ultimately you can get it, so it's consistent. Just takes time. None of them ever get this in a day. That is at least staying there consistently. Good, like that. Yeah, all the way down there. That's a pretty nice big step you're getting out of the horse now. So now, of course, we're simply going to try to work the same thing here. Starting off right away, she was a little flat there, so to speak, and not wanting to stretch into the contact enough. It's the same issue here. We want to get this horse much longer and lower so it stretches out more from the base of the shoulder is what we're looking for. Good. And you're certainly doing the right thing in terms of, right now, just riding with your hands a little wider, that sort of thing, as we get the horse to working into the stretch. Once again, remember, this is schooling riding. It's not equitation for the show ring. Many people will see you riding, and, oh, what are you doing with your hands like that? Well, you're schooling the horse. Once we get the horse to take correct contact, then, of course, we want to come back to the correct position. That is, the hands just above the withers and that sort of thing. But, we need to get the horse there first. But if you worry about your equitation, and forget about the horse, you're not going to have much at the end of the day. So get the horse going well and correctly over its back, and then you will be able to equitate on it. Once again, that's one of the biggest mistakes I see inexperienced trainers or trainers who really don't understand, how the training, must be coupled with the training of the horse. And you can't train a rider to do something that the horse can't do, or have them start trying something that the horse is ill-prepared to do. So we must be sure that every piece of our foundation lies upon the next one, instead of just trying to do random riding, as I call it, or posing riding. So many trainers today are just teaching people to pose. They're constantly harassing them about their leg position, hand position, back position, and then they're letting the horse go completely upside down. Or worse yet, they've got the rider holding against the reins with draw reins or some such thing, with 50 pounds of pressure in each hand while they're balancing against the hand. The beauty of this system, that's really good trot there. Now you're getting some good points there. That's starting to stretch much better. A little bit lower again, but that's good. Now we're starting to see a pretty nice swing. If you compare the trot you're getting right now to what you started, the horse really wasn't swinging under itself at all in the beginning, and now it is quite well. And I'm not seeing anything, as far as your horse having asymmetrical hips. I've had many, many, many horses with asymmetrical hips, and it usually isn't that big a deal to them. And the stifle problem should tighten up without a problem once you get the horse working over its back. I've also dealt with that many, many times. And get horses working correctly. Some of these problems, you take a young horse, If it's not working over back, once again, it's just like taking your car and driving it with no shock absorbers on it. It's going to make a lot of things go bad very soon. Once again, is why we see so many lame young horses. If you do dressage correctly, the whole point is, the most effective way to ride a horse so that you can ride it. If you're laming your horse all the time in training, which is what we see. It's so many barns that I go to and people that I talk to, the people they're in training with, half the horses in their barns are lame all the time because of the way they're going about it, and they simply haven't put 2 and 2 together to realize that the way they're training is the problem. That is, the horse is not working over their back. So all of the tension and concussion of the movement is taken up in the hard tissue of those little tiny joints in the horse's legs and things, and collateral ligaments and things like that, which can cause great problem. But this is a pretty nice swinging trot you've got here. This is starting to look really nicely. Still like to see him a little bit deeper in the stretch, but it's certainly better than where you started. The head has lowered a bit. Still want to see the horse stretching out from the base of the shoulder, but you're having moments that you're really getting it there. So our goal is to get it all the way down there and keep him there. Like you're getting there, that's a better stretch there. And you see how this horse is kind of curling back. So as you said, whoever the jumper rider with you, they probably got this horse breaking back in the neck or something, or overflexed, and that's what generally happens. You said the horse gets very pissy when you try to canter and it gets all shortened up. Now, that can also be a foot issue, or something else bothering the horse. And you said the horse does have loose stifle, so it might be that. In which case, if you find that with the canter, I would not do a lot of cantering on this horse. Remember that trotting is what builds strength and muscle more than anything else. Cantering builds wind, if you kind of look at it that way. Of course, it secondarily would build a little bit. Obviously, just reacted a little bit to that horse going by. And you did just the right thing there, is that you just kept on going instead of stopping. We see so many people... I don't know why it's epidemic here to California. Every time a horse spooks, the people stop and pet him on the neck or give him a treat. And so pretty soon they're spooking at everything in the ring because they're basically rewarding that behavior. So whenever we just ignore bad behavior. You just go right on like nothing has happened. And pretty soon when you ride like that, the horse will feel the same way about it. Very nice leg yield. That's not bad at all. Not bad at all. And after that leg yield, the trot looked a little better. Popped up a little bit, but no big deal. I feel like you're very close to having this very consistent. If you keep up this work, you're going to really get there. And just know that what you want to watch, once you start really getting the horse there, stand back and look at your horse every day. Stand back and look at that hole, the dip behind the saddle there, and ask yourself, is that starting to fill in? Is the horse starting to look more uphill? That is, it's just the way it's basically just standing. They will start to take on a more uphill appearance, That's why saddlebred people started putting these jacked up shoes. They're basically trying to imitate a correctly trained horse by putting foot-tall shoes on it. Oh, now it's not on the forehand. Well, it's still on the forehand because it's hollow. So the thing to remember is, no matter where the head and neck position has very little to do with whether a horse is on the forehand or not. It has to do with whether the horse is working through its back and how deeply it's tracking under the body. That's not a bad swinging trot there. I feel like it could get better, and I think it will get better. The horse will be able to track further as you get it deeper into the stretch. But it's not bad. And it looks like you're on your way to getting the right kind of work happening. So good job. Keep it up. I love how you're never trying to force the horse into a frame against your hands. That's nice there, even a little bit lower. So we still just want to get this horse like another foot down. I mean, we want to get once to the point where they're practically, touching their nose on the ground. Then we can bring them up a little bit because we really want to lengthen that shoulder. From the shoulder, that is, and really lengthen that neck out from the shoulder so that the shoulder can swing freely. If the neck is all compressed back into the body, what do you think it does to the horse's shoulder in terms of movement? We take so many horses and, try to show people how much better movers they are when they're allowed to move correctly. Then once you find that optimal length of stride, then all you have to do is just keep doing that every day. And in time, as once again, it takes about a year to establish the top line. You will see the change. You'll see that hole behind the saddle disappear. You'll see that the horse just stands with a more uphill appearance. Its shoulders will seem to be broader, and its withers will come up out of the withers, and it will flatten right behind the withers there, so to speak. So you have a good round place to sit your saddle on. A horse that's correctly moving is like a wave. We want to feel it lifts us up like a wave and carries us forward. So a horse that's not round in the back is like someone learning to surf, after the wave is broken, which is where you want to surf and the way it would be safe for riders, who don't have correctly trained, 15-year-old schoolmasters that are perfect, and nobody in the United States has them, or very few people. I have one, but very few people have any. So it's a difficult thing. So you kind of have to make your own, and that's what you're in the process of doing here. But understanding that, I mean, so many people that start out riding don't really realize, no one tells them that the way they're riding this beginner horse that has a hollow back, you know, because it's safe for them, is not the way they're ultimately going to ride. So people need to be aware of that, you know, riding hollow horses, if you do at all, you know, is something that only beginners do who are, you know, nervous and they don't have much position, who can't literally deal with the thrust of the horse's back coming up. But I would say, you know, more than anything, people ask me all the time, what can you do to help your riding and be in as best physical fitness that you possibly can, you know, because you can't expect to get fit riding horses, you know. It just doesn't. Even when I rode 20, 25 horses a day in my early days of training, I still went to the gym every day, and I still do. So the more fit you are, the easier all this will be, the easier you'll be able to keep your weight from interfering with the movement of the horse. And once again, this is a pretty nice swinging trot. I just want to get him a little bit longer and lower, but you're really doing quite a nice job, and I love how you're not interfering anywhere with the horse. That is all good. Come back to a nice swinging walk. And each time you come back and get the walk, you know, more stretched in the walk and get longer, you'll find that it'll be easier in the trot. That's why I say we always go through the gears in the same order when we're training. You know, only would be a very advanced horse, and only under duress would I expect them to suddenly, you know, jump up and do something, you know. So we always want to have a warm-up, no matter how advanced the horse is. A Grand Prix horse should begin by stretching every day, just like you and I. We don't go to the gym and lift the heaviest weight we can because we'd hurt ourselves. Well, that's what people are asking horses to do all the time. They get on and suddenly expect them to be doing something that's physically very, very difficult without any warm-up. So they drop their backs and become resistive, and then the people start whacking on them, trying to get them more animated, you know. Then pretty soon we have a tense horse. We've seen so many of these in the last. I must say I'm so happy, and I salute Germany for being one of the first countries, you know, to begin pushing away from the Rollker, you know, in these kind of nervous, neurotic dressage horses that we saw develop in the last 20 years. You know, we really need to see that disappear, or we're going to lose dressage as it is, and dressage will just become another silly sport that people can go and pick up ribbons at horse shows that will be very meaningless. So I would hate to see that happen. We all need to be talking to our dressage judges and writing letters to the FEI, for instance, and the American Horse Show Federation, USDF, you know, asking them and demanding that they begin to judge by the rules instead of what has become of just sort of popularity contest out there where, you know, popular riders can come in the ring with horses completely hollow and nervous wrecks and get 80%. I mean, this has got to stop, or the sport will just become a complete joke. It'll just become another saddlebred thing, you know, like this, where, you know, a silly spectacle as opposed to a solemn one, as Mr. Oliveira used to say. Now, I would tend to, that was a good little rest that you gave the horse there, and back into it again, and that's just what you want to do, give him a little breather. See if we can get, now that's a better stretch there. Now the neck's starting to get a little bit longer. That's much better. And actually, it's interesting because if you can see there for a moment, when he really puts his neck down, you see a little more thrust. That is the push off the ground, and you'll see the trot begin to spring a little more. That's what we're looking for. When you find that place where he really gets deep and stretch, and you feel that supple suspension in the horse, where it really springs up underneath you. That's what I want to see. Same thing here, just needs to be a little bit long. There you go, like that. But you're getting the job done. Really nice. It pops up and you just ask him to soften again. I love how you're keeping this all to big circles and simple leg yields. That's all you should be doing with this horse. Nothing smaller than a circle the width of this arena. Now, while this canter, you know, is not terrible, I see what you mean. It's kind of like a rocking horse kind of canter where the horse isn't really coming through and isn't really sending itself forward. It's kind of rocking back and forth as it's canter. So once again, same thing. Remember, we want to stretch in all three gaits. From what I saw there, the canter, my advice to you would be to not canter a whole lot for a while until you get this horse. I mean, I wouldn't even do it until you get the horse to stretch all the way down a little more in the trot and you build a little more strength. And then when you come back to your canter, you'll find that it'll be a little better. The canter the horse is doing now is, as I said, it's kind of a rocking horse canter, where it canters and the back end is going up and down. It's not just staying on one plane, so to speak, with its back. It's kind of pulling itself off its shoulders, so to speak, bounding off its shoulders and the hindquarters. And that's what gives you that rocking kind of feeling, like the front end and back end are going back and forth like a teeter-totter a little bit. And that's not what we want to have happen. So my suggestion to you is just not a whole lot of that, a lot more trot work till you really get the horse stretching deeper and more consistent, and you see that hole's filling up. So, I'm not saying to never canter, but, I'd go at this point in this horse's career, I would say once or twice a week for a couple of strides around just to see what it's like, because what you're going to see is as you improve this trot, the rest of it's just going to improve and improve and improve, and then you'll ask for the canter, and it will be there, and it won't have that rocking horse canter to it. It'll come through in the canter a little more, instead of just pulling itself off of its shoulders, which is what it was really doing there. Better trot there. That's starting to look a little deeper there. Nice, and she does want to curl back. I see what you kind of meant. This horse has been broken over a little bit in the neck. It was kind of doing that in the canter. It was really kind of a hollow canter, but its neck was kind of falsely, bent over a little bit. Of course, a lot of the jumper people don't ever even hardly trot their horses, or at least that's how it is here where I am in California. As people get on, they walk for 2 minutes, and then they just start cantering and jumping fence with no warm-up or anything else, and that's just ridiculous. Also ride so many horses today. Horses should really be jumped once or twice a week, and when they become really experienced jumpers, a little bit before each horse show, because every time you jump a horse, you take a little tread off the tires, so to speak. So they've only got so many jumps in them before you wear those legs out, and especially if you jump the horse hollow. So you end up with things like that, with the neck breaking over. They tend to like to put draw reins on them. They think it's getting the back up, but it really doesn't do anything at all. But unless you understand. It's interesting too, because the person who started the whole draw rein phase was Bert Denemethy, the ones who brought them to the United States, and he always railed about never putting them between the horse's legs. He thought that was terrible, and thought they should only be used from the side, that is at about the top of the girth there to the bit, and never under their legs, because for that very reason, that it tends to pull horses over onto their forehand. And that's kind of how this horse's canter looked. So stay away from the canter a little bit. But you're doing a really good job. For just getting started with this on your own and trying to get it together, you're doing a really, really good job. Just try to get that stretch a little deeper, both in your walk and trot. Spend more time there. When you can consistently get the horse stretched all the way down, really reaching from, and you can do a figure 8, that is, without having to bring the neck up to control it, that's a good sign that really the horse is really getting over its back. Because usually when you change directions, the horse will pop up. Well, that usually tells you the horse is being kind of held against the rein on one side. Once the horse is really working over its back, you'll have no trouble changing directions and keeping the horse over its back while you do it. I like that last little stretch there. You're doing a good job, and as far as your technique of how you're using your hands and all that is really good. There's a better walk there. That's what I want to see. So it's really just that idea that all we're ever doing is, taking a little more than contact with our mouth, but we're never making our fingers rigid. We're never trying to hold the horse's head down, because you can't hold any horse's head down, certainly not without having some ill effect. So what you're doing there is just about right. That is, just soften the horse and release, soften and release, soften and release, and send it through. So we send it through first, of course. Remember, a lot of people use the word half halt. I just say balance. I hate the word half halt because it makes people in America think that you're stopping. It isn't about stopping. It's about engaging the horse. The only thing that can change, you can balance a horse by slowing it down so that you're going so slow that you don't notice how out of balance it is, or you can keep a big gait and get the horse over its back and it can become balanced. That's what we want, because then a horse is safe. A horse that's been trained in a ring where, in a really shortened gait, and you get it out and have to move it open a little bit, you find that you have absolutely nothing and the horse falls down. I've seen it in the hunt field many, 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 many times, and I hope I've seen it for the last time in my life. I've waited for too many ambulances for people out in the hunt field. One of the reasons why I stopped hunting on the weekends when I was fox hunting a lot, for that reason. And then don't worry about those halts. Don't make them, right on the spot. That's really good work, though. Keep up the good work. You're doing just well with this horse. Get that stretch longer from the shoulder so he really reaches down a little deeper, and you're going to have it. Great job. I look forward to seeing your next tape.